The man of tomorrow is here for you, baby. And, whoo, what a week it's been. It had, yeah, that's it. It's been a week. Of course, if you want to, those listening, you're already donating to the show. You're already members of Zomia ONE Underground, and I'm honored by that. If you want to help out further, of course, please feel free to help out through PayPal or the Bitcoin address. You can actually look at the one on my Twitter profile if you want to send to that. It would certainly be greatly appreciated. But we've got a lot to get into with this episode. Got a great tech question. We got a question to follow up from last week and something to open up with. Speaking of Twitter, I shared this on Twitter, and the only reason I knew about this is because someone emailed me they DM'd me the tweet, and I have things I want to talk about at first, but I gotta make a bit of a correction on something. So anyway, I don't know. I guess people assume certain things about me. I don't know why, I can imagine why. But regardless, I'll set the record straight, or try to anyway. But boy, that LastPass event, this was a phenomenal. Man, did I have a good time with that. On Twitter, I actually reshared. They have the audio. I think the video's up too. In fact, they emailed me today with a gallery of photos that were taken there. I'm in a ton of those photos, and it's kind of weird too. Actually, in fact, I'm there at the sign-in table and everything, as well as a Sovereign Tech listener is there with me as well. I don't know. I was kind of surprised because there was a good 300 some odd people there. I forget exactly how many, but I know it was a pretty high number. But what a well done event. I did hear on Security Now that they are thinking about doing more, and that LastPass would like them to do more. There's no way. All right, here's the thing they have, that LastPass, which is owned, of course, by LogMeIn, but we'll just say LastPass. Here's the thing they've got to understand, right, is that probably the bulk of that crowd, again, we're talking about 300 people, the bulk of that crowd was there for Steve Gibson. I guarantee you that. No one else, in fact, they even said it, that Leo had even talked about it, Leo Laporte. And I'm sure people were there to meet Leo Laporte as well. Again, I've been, like I mentioned on Sovereign Tech, on the double load that we did this past week. I've been watching him since I was a teenager. I used to buy his technology almanac all the time from Barnes and Noble. I watched him with the screensavers, back when it was Tech TV, before it was even G4. But apparently, like Leo was saying on Security Now, that there were people who literally flew in from around the world and other sides of the, just to hang out with Steve Gibson, or just to be, in the room with the guy, because the guy never leaves his house, which is exactly what I said. Well, a lot of that got confirmed when they did a little bit of a conversation around it on Security Now. As of this getting released on Wednesday, it would have been just the day before, on Tuesday. So anyway, but what a great event. I will say though, if they're going to do any more in the future, I really hope they allow for some more interaction with the crowd. Oh, the point I was going to get to is that LastPass has to realize that people were there to see Steve Gibson. They can't just have one of these events and expect 300 people to show up with whatever names that they put on there. 300 people are not showing up for a LastPass event. Okay, 300 people are showing up for a Steve Gibson event. I know there were people who showed up at this event even to see me, but they've got to know, I'm honored by that and not deserving, but I appreciate it all the same. But I hope LastPass recognizes that fuck, you can't just do, again, people aren't there for LastPass. Everybody there already used LastPass. You weren't going to make any converts there. If this looks good on your spreadsheets and for investors, awesome, but you're going to have to bring dynamite names. And even as great as Bill Cheswick was there, you can't just have Bill Cheswick. Okay, you can't just have they had their CISO Jerry there. You can't just have him. You've got, and Leo might, I could imagine Leo might draw that, but Leo does go to other events. It's not like you can't see Leo. Again, I hope they recognize that this worked because Steve Gibson got out of his hovel. And I say that with absolute respect, obviously. I mean, Steve Gibson's just, I patterned so much of what I do after Steve Gibson. I mean, he's a complete hero. So I hope that they do more of these. If it's not in New England, if it's not in the Northeast, I don't know that I would, I would attend it. It was a great event. It was an interesting conversation. I have more I want to say about that. It was an interesting conversation, but I don't know, other than getting to shake hands with Steve Gibson, I don't know that it's necessarily worth traveling a great distance for. Because, I mean, yeah, I'm glad the panel went a good 2 hours. And, this is something that I think a lot of events that get held, tech or otherwise, don't understand, is that you really cannot do these 15, even 45-minute panels. Especially when you have a lot of great minds involved. Or even if, you've got to give them an hour and a half to 2 hours. And I know I've hosted panels at a variety of events. I've been involved and I've been on panels at events. And sometimes these things would only go like 30 minutes. And no one can get anything in, and you sure as fuck can't. And then even 15 minutes for Q&A. Oh, forget it. So kudos to LastPass for saying, no, this is all we need. We're only going to do the one panel and that's it. And away you go. I think that I thought it was dynamite and well done in that way. I got to say though, and we're going to talk about this, and I might bring this point up again on this week's Sovereign Tech, at least what I have planned for right now. Okay. You never know what happens or if there's going to be a guest on or whatever happens with Sovereign Tech. Things can shift, but there is a story. I'm going to get to this by one of Sovereign Tech's top listeners. Okay. And someone I consider a friend who's helped me out personally. He sent me on Twitter. You can find it I retweeted it and everything. That was just brilliant. And in basically one Vox article brought up a lot of what we've been talking about really for 8 years on Sovereign Tech. And it's so concise that and the listener even said, here, this would probably make good fodder for the show. And fuck yeah, it does. And kind of the overall point of this article is that, like this idea that technology, that the direction that we're going, like a lot of what we've talked about over the last double load of episodes that we did. Was that episode 344 and 345? Where, now things are all going to voice assistants and eventually you won't even have a smartphone. But you're going to have less control, amazingly, with the complete lack of control, really, that you already have when it comes to a smartphone, right? But that, like this idea that Silicon Valley has this belief that tech is just evolving and all you can do is ride the tide and you can't really stop it and all this, that premise is wholly wrong. Because the most disturbing thing at the Unlocked event that I was just talking about that I went to, that Steve Gibson was hosting, was that biometrics are like, they were just downright excited about it. And they're like, oh, fine. Yeah. Biometrics. Woohoo. Yay. They just accepted it as a given. And God damn it. No, I've spent a good chunk of those 8 years of Sovereign Tech debunking the whole, just showing case after case why biometrics are a horrible fucking idea. And I know I brought that up on episode 344, I guess, that I couldn't believe how on board they were with this. But yeah, that's really, really bothersome. I hope if I think of it, I'll link to it in the show notes here. If not, you can find it on Twitter or it's in the main Twit feed. It's like the latest Twit special where you can actually hear the Unlocked event for yourself. It is out there. And I do recommend listening to it because you are hearing from really four great minds, and fuck Steve Gibson, one of the greatest, in the tech world. So I think it's worthwhile for everybody to listen. And if I retread some of this ground in episode 346 of Sovereign Tech, or be it if it's 347 or 348, guys, gals, and Z's understand, there's only about, well, all told, 100 of you or so. now that, between Podbean and Patreon, that are signed up for the, for the bonus content here for the Underground, as to where, there's almost 20,000 Sovereign Tech listeners. So, bear with me as I repeat content at times that I consider to be incredibly important in other episodes. We went over what we talked about on last week's Q&A with the concept of, basically the steroidized Android MP3 player, right? We went back over that. But you know how many emails I got from people going, holy fuck, their mind was blown. It just, something so simple, and something that like I had said in that episode, that other Sovereign Tech listeners had already even emailed me about and messaged me about and whatever, years ago. That, it blew their mind. They never even considered that, well, fuck yeah, right. Why do I have to have one device? I could have two. And I don't have to, again, is it a convenience issue? No, you don't have to carry around two devices at any given moment. At any given moment. You'd only have to carry around one, but yes, you do have two devices. But you separate those parts of your life. That's more important than ever. For a lot of reasons, and I didn't even get to I didn't get into everything on episode 345 of Sovereign Tech that I wanted to say around that. But it's an evolving, that is something that's actually evolving, unlike tech. It's an evolving conversation that we can have to where it meets our needs. But yeah, I think, if not, granted, maybe not all of us can do it, but a lot of us can really fork away, to use a technical term, fork away from the trajectory that Silicon Valley's on. And I think that we need to be there when other people realize, fuck, we need to fork away. I was having a conversation with another tremendous listener. We had a beautiful conversation. And, I was saying to him that, I'm afraid that 20 years from now, because so much of this stuff is still really new. It's really, really new. I'm afraid that 20 years from now, you're going to have people on their deathbeds, and they are going to say, fuck, I wish I didn't spend so much time in front of a screen. Or fuck, who gives a shit about what I said on Twitter or on Facebook or whatever. You're going to have people who are going to have a tragic realization of how they spent their time in their lives. You had that before there were screens in front of everybody's faces, but now you're really going to fucking have it, because now it's really going to show some emptiness. You can't even really look back and smile, A, because there's just so goddamn much, but B, I have a hard time believing that a lot of this is really enriching, venerating. Even if you watched a ton of movies or TV shows or something, you had the opportunity in so doing, or played a lot of video games. With those things, you have an opportunity to somewhat vicariously live life, maybe if it's like science fiction, on other worlds or in other times or, whatever. And there can be something enriching within that. But just spending a metric butt ton of time on social media or just in front of a screen in general doing who the fuck knows what. Yeah, I feel like there's going to be a lot of people who are going to feel like, God damn it, did I waste my life? And what a pity, because it doesn't have to be that way. And the alternative to looking at a screen does not have to be having something jammed into your fucking ear. The alternative could actually be paying attention, storing stuff in your own brain, keeping your own memories, not uploading all of them to the fucking cloud because you had to take a goddamn picture of it, and actually living life. Living such a powerful life you don't even have time to interact with the screen. Imagine that. Imagine that kind of life. I try to imagine it all the time and try to live it. But anyway, we're not exactly here to talk about that. But that Unlocked event, boy, it is a snapshot as to where we are, no doubt about it. But part of what bothers me thinking about it more is how inevitable these guys that have been around for decades, some of them twice my age, how they really, they just say, well, I can't stop it, so I might as well plug in Alexa. Fuck no. No way. Oh, man. But then at the same time, like I said, the most brilliant thing to come out with is that, like Steve Gibson said, when he left the house for a while, he did not leave his computers at the house. And I think that deserves a lot of exploration, and something we probably will explore, how you can do that, how to set that up, how to go about that, for yourself, in a future episode. So anyway, something I want to get to. I had a person DM me, and this person basically said, and I know I've gotten this also applies, I think, to a couple of Q&As ago, where basically a person, and I don't know if this is the same person or not, because one was an email, the other was a DM. I don't know if it's the same identity. But, I got accused of being an environmentalist, which, I don't like that term. I'm not. But basically, this person DM'd me and said, you're the most leftist person I know, and so it was about that picture which made the rounds. Ironically, here we are talking about social media, but that picture that made the rounds of Ellen DeGeneres hanging out with George W. Bush at a Packers game, I guess. No jokes. And they're like, what do you think about this? And I'm just like, I didn't really respond. I just, I shared it. I found like the best version of that picture that I could on my own feed on Twitter. And I basically said, look, what's going on here, what I think about this, it's very simple. That it's not, because Ellen DeGeneres is well known as being, very lefty, LGBTQ and all that, right? And then George W. Bush, obviously, has been the face of conservatism for many circles for, some time. And as well as the face of a lot of other things. But they would seem to be, you would think, and I'm sure somewhere Ellen DeGeneres has said something ridiculous, or, said something derogatory, probably towards, George W. Bush. If anything, she certainly said things against the Republican Party, which I understand he was, when he was president, he was in many ways basically head of the Republican Party. Basically, I know there's a GOP chair and blah. I know. Okay, I hate the fact that I know. I don't want to know, but I get it. Okay, that's actually how things work, but I think you get my point. So the question basically, what do you think about this? And it's like, well, Ellen DeGeneres doesn't mean jack shit to me. Like I couldn't care less about what she does. But, I tweeted it out, and that I used as basically my response. And my response is simply this. All this picture proves, and it's not a new realization for many, all this picture proves is that it's not left versus right. It's never been left versus right. It's elites, or they, them, those, or the powers that be, pick your term, the money masters, whatever, versus everybody else. That's what it's always been. And so, I mean, I don't think I need to expand on that much, but basically, I'll say this part straight. In my opinion, now there might be some exceptions, but they are so rare, so fucking rare. And they're probably at the very least in their 50s, if not much older. Basically, to become, part of to become a celebrity, or to get on, on TV on the regular, or whatever, okay? To use a colloquialism, you basically have to sell your soul. Like, you are, if you've made it into those circles, like say an Ellen DeGeneres has, or who's the new one? Kelly Clarkson, I think, has her own show now. You basically have to, you cannot have, or you cannot live by your own principles. You cannot, you're just, you have to buy into and pay fealty to the powers that be to get there. You just have to. You don't ever want to be famous, folks. Not like them. You don't want to be that kind of famous, because the cost is just too high. I guarantee it. I mean, like, look, even somebody that I'm a big fan of. Okay, and I'll get to what I want to clarify in a second, though it's a one sentence affair. You know, I'm a big fan of The Rock, right? Does The Rock ever come out and like really say anything root striking? You know, does he ever come out and like say anything? I mean, an argument could be kind of made that maybe he's trying to sneak some shit in. Like, I mean, it's interesting that in the movie Hobbs and Shaw, he's quoting Nietzsche half the time. I mean, and in fact, they spend a little too much time on that. And I don't know if that has to do with like some kind of subliminal message about the Ubermensch or something like that, or if The Rock is genuinely an egoist. I mean, this is something, so there's the book, The Occult Technology of Power, right? Which basically says is that everybody in power, you know, the bankers, the celebrities, politicians, whatever, they're all egoists. They all know the nature of reality. Okay, right? Like they get it. Okay. They know, you know, even what like egoists like myself know. You know, they know the rules, that there are no rules, and so on. But they can't, like in the book, The Occult Technology of Power, where it's this kind of fictional setup of like a money master teaching his kid, or, you know, an elite teaching his son, you know, how the world works. And he basically says, like, okay, this is how it works. Governments are wrong. All this stuff is wrong, but we can't let the little people know because they can't handle it. Like that's basically the premise of that book. But then I think that's basically the quote unquote rule that a lot of these celebrities and everybody else, you know, that are in that upper echelon, that's what they play by. And so you're never going to hear The Rock say anything like genuinely root striking, ever. You're never going to hear him like come out and say, well, you know, this is wrong, blah, blah. I mean, like the higher up you get, the less actual positions you can have. Or if you do have positions, you see them shift, you know, all the time, just like happens with any Republican or Democrat. I mean, it's crazy. So it's always been elites versus everybody else. And they play by a completely different rule book. In fact, it's a rule book with no rules. And then they set you up. You know, you have to jump from one foot to the next, right? And all the rules are in opposition to what, you know, to actually living a happy life. Big conversation to have around that. But the point that I want to, so why is Ellen hanging out with why is Ellen DeGeneres hanging out with George W. Bush? Because they're best friends. Because they're on the same team. They're elites. That's why. I mean, it's a no fucking brainer. All right? Stop. I mean, anybody who you think, anybody in the music industry, whatever. I mean, again, there might be some exceptions here and there. Okay, but I mean, they are so, they're nobody that's going to trend on Twitter, I'll tell you that much. But the basic point that I have to drive home for you here, okay, and that I want to make very clear, I'm not a lefty. Okay, I mean, I know I can kind of get like bundled in with this sort of thing. That ain't me. That's not. I'm not a righty either. Okay, I like to think I'm well above all of that, above either side, because the reality is the only people that are on the left or on the right are the everybody else, right? There's no elites actually on the left or right. I'm not claiming I'm an elite. But I don't identify with those terms. This is such a problem that we want to pigeonhole everybody, you know, into these identifiers so that we feel like we can, we can more easily engage with the masses and with the amount of people that we can engage with online. But really all it's showing is that, see, this is the problem. We're not meant to engage with this many people. We're meant to actually know people and not just fucking, label them or slap an identifier or a hyphen on them. That's the problem. The problem isn't terms. The problem is, I mean, it kind of is, but the problem isn't really terms. The problem isn't like, this versus this. The problem is that we're engaging with more people than we could possibly handle. And so we're coming up with shortcuts that absolutely, that create artificial divisions between us. Big problem. So if someone thought that I was, I'm not. Okay. I don't, but I also don't accept the term, I sure as fuck ain't a conservative. I don't accept the term the right. I don't even, run with the term libertarian. And again, libertarians are the ones who are telling me I'm not a libertarian. I don't run with any of that stuff. It's not me being hipster or cool. Okay. That is me engaging reality. Because the reality is that a lot of these terms are fucking meaningless, and they are created not from the ground up, not from bottom up, but from top down. It's artificial. So, all of that said, spent way more time on that than I anticipated doing so. But all right, let's get into a tech question. Then we might have time to get into the music question. And then I have a great album of the week. And I'm not kidding about that. I think it's genuinely great. I mean, I have to, I know I've already said this, but really 2019 is one of the top years in decades. Okay. Throughout the decades, this is one of the top years of music just in metal alone, even though I'm not giving you a metal album this week. This is absolutely one of the top years. It is insane the amount of new albums that I find myself having to listen to, and not only having to listen to it, but enjoying the fuck out of it. Oh, what a jewel of a year. I mean, I really, in fact, I was talking to my Ellen about this, not Ellen DeGeneres, my Ellen, an actual principled human being and brilliant one at that. I was saying to her, I was like, I haven't felt a year like this since like 2009. And it's almost weird actually that it's exactly 10 years later that we're getting such an amazing year of musical releases, at the very least within metal. It's remarkable. So, and there's still more coming out this year. It's fucking crazy. I mean, we got a new Michael Sweet album. I think that might be coming out this week. Oh, I'm fucking excited for that. Fuck yes. But anyway, okay. So, see now, you know what? I say I listen to Michael Sweet and Stryper. Now people are going to think I'm a Christian. Stop doing that. Stop doing that to people. If you really want to know what they're about, ask them. Otherwise, don't assume. I try not to assume with people. Okay? I can listen to Stryper as a metal fan because they're fucking talented artists and not be a Christian. Is that okay? Okay. I don't need your permission either. But regardless, let's go on to this. Actually, this was the end part of a very, very long Telegram message that I got that I was really honored by, and something I'm going to be doing some research on because, well, it's always vindicating, kind of like that Vox article I was telling you about earlier. It's always vindicating, and it always gives me a sense of relief that there are other people who come to conclusions that I do. And I like sharing that sort of stuff because, frankly, it makes me, I guess, seem less crazy because like, oh, see, I mean, that's the thing. People can write off sovereign tech all they want, right? We talked about this in the last episode too. They can write off sovereign tech all they want. They're like, oh, that guy's just nuts. Eventually, I hate to say it because often I don't want to be. I usually end up getting proven right. But it's great when other people have come to similar conclusions. That way I am not just, oh, that's crazy Brian Sovereign. Oh no, I am not alone. And I always love finding, and hearing about other people, who again come to similar conclusions on things and even have similar interests. It's always a joy. So that said, this is actually a tech question that came at the end of all that, and I'll talk about the rest probably in the future. Here we go. So I am not very into the 4K Ninja TV BS that seems so important for many people. I am, however, looking for a new TV since our old one is starting to look extremely dated and my partner would appreciate some sharpness. With Maman Friday approaching. I love that. Maman Friday. Talk about the Money Masters. Anyway. Of course, sure reference to Black Friday, right? That's what that is. With, Maman is, in the Bible, one cannot one cannot serve God and Mammon. You know, Mammon is money. Anyway, with Mammon Friday approaching, I figured it could be a good time to upgrade. I want as little Spy TV as possible. I am under no illusion that a Spy-free TV is even available at a decent price, or maybe at all, and I am okay with it. I own smartphones. Right on. Mostly looking for inspiration here. What does the Sovereign-approved TV look like? Okay, well, fortunately, I mean, I can tell you, and I did link to it in the show notes, the exact TV that I do use. And there are a lot of very good reasons why I went with this TV. And this TV was purchased out of a lot of research. Like, I mean, this is something that, I mean, any technology that I'm into, I like to be very versatile. Okay. Unless it's something designed where I want it to do one thing and do it very, very well. But I want something to be very versatile. However, versatile does not equate to it that it needs to be smart. Basically, a versatile television does not have to have a Roku built into it or any other horseshit. Okay, but it does need to have perhaps a lot of connectors, a certain resolution, some other options, and so on. So I will tell you the exact TV that I got. Now, a qualifier that, and I suppose I could have asked him quick on Telegram, but I just got this in today. But a qualifier is what size do you want? Now, granted, what I'm about to tell you about, I mean, comes in a variety of sizes, so maybe it's something that will still end up, working well for you. But the TV that I use basically every day for some purpose or other, and I mean, even this goes so far as let me paint a picture. Okay, now it is a 19-inch television. Okay, now if you're okay with a 19-inch television, frankly, especially if all you're going to use is HDMI, an HDMI device of some kind, I mean, if you want to keep it dumb and actually get really good screen quality, I mean, you could just as easily go with a computer monitor for 19 inches. To more specifically want a TV, you're either A, wanting more than HDMI, or B, you want a massive screen. I know computer monitors come in huge screen resolutions and sizes now as well. But I think most people, maybe they're looking for like a 32-inch TV, which I think is kind of the sweet spot between, okay, it's not fucking massive, but then also it's not a computer monitor. But the model or each size of this that I'm about to describe is a little bit different than the other, but they're all within kind of the same basic capabilities. So I don't mind sharing this one with you. But anyway, so the one that I got, and again, I'm going to paint you the picture of what I use it for. So I needed a television, and this is where all my research came in. I needed a television that had HDMI. Now, I would have loved if it had multiple HDMI ports, right? If it had at least two, that'd be great. That is not always the easiest thing to find, especially when we're looking for like a dumber TV. And again, this person's specifically asking for a Sovereign approved TV. But it's also easy enough. I mean, they cost like, I don't know, 10 to 20 bucks, depending, where you can get an HDMI splitter, where you can just like, it's a little device that you can press a button on it and you can switch between devices that you have hooked up via HDMI. That's easy enough to do. And the more HDMI ports, the better. And I don't expect to buy a television that has 5 or 6 HDMI ports anyway. Okay, so if it only has one and I got to do a splitter, that's fine. Like that, I'm willing to, to make that, just to make that trade-off. Okay. So, but what I want to do is I needed something with HDMI, but I also needed something that could do not just RCA, but also component. Okay. Where it needed to be, where it has the green, where it splits up, not just like the yellow wire. I always get the terms component and composite confused, even though I've been dealing with it for years. But where it has like the green, blue, and red in the back. And then it has the yellow and white for audio, right? So it needed to have that, but then also I wanted it to have RCA, where it's just the red, yellow, and white. And, years ago, finding TVs with that was very commonplace, not hard at all. In fact, sometimes you get TVs with multiple like AV outs or AV inputs, where you'd have multiple red, white, and yellows. Okay, which that would have been nice. Again, you're not finding that today. The listener who emailed me, they already prefaced they understand that. Great. But I wanted that. I wanted the ability to have coaxial just in case. You know, you never know. I wanted to have a USB port to power something, perhaps. And I wanted to have a headphone jack, a 1/8 jack that you could plug in, say, speakers into. Anything beyond that, if it had like S-Video or if it had DVI or VGA, you know, anything in those realms would be gravy. Like it'd just be, you know, icing on the cake. It's not exactly what I was looking for. But that's what I mean by versatility. Okay, and the other caveat, the other thing that I wanted for me was I wanted it to be 1080p because I do have a Blu-ray collection and I think 1080p is also that sweet spot, right? It's not stupid like 2K, 4K, and 8K. All right, it's actually something where you can genuinely see the benefits with 1080p, and I think you can. You can see the benefits, but then you also don't get the soap opera effect that comes along with 4K, right? Where everything it doesn't look real. 1080p, it looks sharp, right? And that's good. So I think 1080p is the perfect resolution. You never want higher. You could 720p would be what you'd get otherwise. You could get away with that, but I think 1080p is where it's at. Okay, so those are the things that I wanted. Is that versatility and that perfect resolution. And admittedly myself, I did want a smaller television because, I mean, do I have a premium of space? Sure. But the reality is that I don't want television to own my life, right? Nor should you. So, you know, having a smaller television that you could easily tuck away or even just, you know, I don't know, toss a towel over or something so that you don't know that it's even there. Dynamite. Another thing that I was kind of looking for, and this is as far as I know, this is mainly more possible with smaller televisions, is that if it has AC and DC power compatibility, meaning that, you know, if you were to hop in an RV or whatever the fuck, like you could plug it in there. I mean, it's a weird world that we live in where I think most people just expect to buy a new TV every tax day, frankly. Every time they get their tax return, they're going to get the next version of a TV. I mean, that's not what people really need. That's what, you know, corporatism, the market, and whatever else has taught you think you need. And I'm not saying this person is that, obviously not, that asked about this, but they make you think you need that. I'm a millennial, but I guess I'm from a generation or from a time where we expected televisions to basically last us forever. The television that I watched the most Star Trek on in my life, at the time that I watched it, as a young person and as a teenager, and I mean, basically up until like I joined the military, the television that I watched so much Babylon 5 on was literally a 30-year-old Zenith 24-inch glass tube television. That's what I watched all that on. All the stuff that I keep quoting to you and referencing to you and all the shit that I've got stored in this head, you know, from that era was all done on that. I grew up with that TV and we never got rid of it. There's no point to get rid of it. The thing was a fucking monster for one. It was a gorgeous piece of woodwork, genuinely. Okay? The sound was great on it. The picture was good for what it was on it, you know? Literally the only reason that we ever got rid of it was because just you couldn't buy the parts for it anymore. You couldn't change the color tube. That's all. TVs used to be designed to last you decades. It is only now that these companies try to ram it down your throat that you need to keep upgrading, you need to buy new, blah, 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 and it's horseshit. That's all 4K is about. I mean, look, the picture just... You could say it gets better. No, there is no reason for that. Like when we end up with things like the soap opera effect and so on, to where the shit we're looking at looks completely unreal, we have gone to the other extreme. So there's no point to any of this. Now, so when I bought this television, and let's be clear here, I spent all of a whopping $120 on this thing. Okay, and that's not even on Maman Friday, right? All told, $120. Okay, it's only a 19-inch television. So, but you can get a 40-inch version of this, or in its class, and they won't even cost you $300. On them on Friday, who knows what that thing will go for. I'll give you a couple other options in a minute as well. Okay, but this TV, so here's the specs. 19-inch, okay, 1080p. It's an LED, but the viewing angles are good. I don't think it's IPS, but the viewing angles aren't really an issue. You got to watch out with LED TVs because sometimes they have it's like if you buy a cheap, really cheap laptop, right? That doesn't have an IPS screen, and like your viewing angles, if you stand up and you look down at your laptop, you can't see what's on the screen. Some people might think that's a privacy feature, but anyway, or if you're too far down, you can't see it, or if you're to the left or to the right, you can't tell what it is. You don't want that. Now, most 1080p screens that are genuinely 1080p, you're not going to run into that issue with an LED screen, because to even project a 1080p, there is a certain range of viewing that comes along with that. It's not always true, but generally, okay? So viewing angles are something that you want to pay attention to. If you're spending more than $100 though, at least, it's a good bet. That viewing angles won't be an issue, but you got to be careful with that. Look into that when you're checking out a TV, especially if it's LED. So anyway, it's 1080p 19-inch LED. It's by a company called Supersonic. Who the fuck knows who they are? It doesn't really matter. Okay, all this stuff is basically based off of like Foxconn and Sharp and Panasonic parts anyway, so they're all the goddamn same. Don't let anybody tell you differently. So, brand names mean about as much today as, they don't mean much. Let's just put it that way. And it has component, it has composite, it has RCA. It does have the coax. It has only one HDMI port. It does have a VGA port, which is very nice. It has the, it has my 1/8 jack, the headphone jack, which is beautiful. It has the USB port, just the one. If they had more, that would have been great, but fine. It also has digital out, and I think it has like that old... Oh, there's that old optical out for audio. I think that's on here too. But that's not stuff that I would ever end up using. So I can have it set up to an HDMI switcher, so it only having one HDMI port's not that big of a deal. It is a dumb television. There's no smart parts in this thing whatsoever. It does not have Wi-Fi. It doesn't have an Ethernet port on it. Nothing of the sort. It's dumb as a box of rocks, and I couldn't be fucking happier about it. And that's exactly what I wanted, because this TV, I didn't get to this earlier and I wanted to. I need something that I can plug a computer into if I need to watch something on there. I need something that I can plug in my PlayStation 2 into, something I can plug my GameCube into, something that and again, these are variety of ports that we're talking about here. Okay, something I can plug in my C64 Mini into, or my Neo Geo Mini. Something that there's just a bunch of. The GameCube alone, you can get HDMI cables for it, but they never really. And there's some options that you can rock with. I know that they exist and they do very well because the GameCube was strangely capable of high resolution, even though they never really took advantage of it. Nintendo never did. But basically, the only thing you could hook that up to was RCA jacks. Okay, and there's times also, actually with the PS2, if you're playing some PS1 games, if your TV is 1080p, you can run into problems with that, even if you set it up with component cables. So, you got to have all these options to be able to connect all these weird-ass fucking devices. Okay, and that's what I needed. Something that could handle old school and new school. And the only smart thing that this TV does is that it switches between what resolution it needs. Does it need to switch to 480i? It can do that. It can go from 480i to 1080p. It also has the AC and DC power capability, so it could be plugged in an RV if I needed it to. So, because again, this is a TV I'm going to have for the long haul, and who knows what the future holds, right? So I think this is a brilliant little television. The speakers on it are not the best. They're little 1-inch woofers, nothing serious. But part of the reason I wanted a USB port and an audio jack on it is because I got a little Creative Labs 2.1 setup that's designed for computers, but I plugged it into the television and the sound is fucking awesome. And it's a USB powered setup with a subwoofer, mind you. Okay, it's a USB powered, so it's just the USB port. I just plug it into the USB port on the on the television, and then I plug it into the audio jack on the television, and away I go. And I have gorgeous sound from that. Don't need it into the TV. But what's in the TV isn't horrible. Okay? So those are the things I look for. And also I like to have different aspect ratio options where you can set it for like just scan, zoom, or wide. That makes things interesting, especially when you're playing with classic systems. And so on. So those are nice options to have it well. So the Supersonic, the exact model is the SC1911, and that's what I decided to go with. I like this thing. I've been using it for some months now, and I'm very, very, very pleased. Now, again, they do offer a 40-inch model of that one, but I would recommend, if you're looking to go higher than that, or if you're wanting something, maybe like it having internal great speakers is important to you, I would look at TVs from TCL, the company TCL. They're going to have a Roku built into it. They probably will have Wi-Fi, but that's about as bad as it gets. And there won't be any like ads on your, at least the last models of TCLs that I saw, and they were from 2018. And you can buy older years, obviously, like on Amazon or whatever, and that's not a bad idea to do at all because, again, these TVs should be lasting fucking years. But there aren't any ads like on the volume bar or anything like that. But those TVs, I mean, even that, like I used the TCL for a good couple of years, and even that I sweated a little bit because there are times where what would show up on screen, because they had Wi-Fi and they would update, like the entire firmware for the television would change, and I don't dig that. But TCL is about the dumbest of the somewhat higher end televisions out there, but they also don't break the bank. I mean, like you can get like a 55-inch 4K TCL TV for like $400. So you want to go anything lower, 1080p and so on. I mean, you're not going to pay that much. But I really, really don't like that. Like suddenly the whole way that the volume button looked changed. Menus complete, and it's not Roku. It was an update done to the television itself. I didn't like that. I was like, no, you don't get to do that to me. so I when I was looking to get another television, I did not go with the TCL. But these supersonic TVs, I mean, yeah, again, dumb as a box of rocks, and that's the way you want them. So that's my Sovereign approved television. Anything within that line. I don't want it to have Wi-Fi. I don't even want it to have an Ethernet cable. I don't want the manufacturer to even consider the idea that they're going to update my TV, because who the fuck knows what they're going to do to that? I can only imagine the horrors that Samsung and Sony and whoever else puts out a television would want to, foist onto people. Fuck it. No thanks. So anyway, and we're getting close to the hour mark. And damn it, there was that story that I still have about the death of the guitar, according to Pete Townsend. I really want to spend the time with this question, so I think we're gonna have to wrap this one up here with that. But that said, we get into a dynamite album of the week, and I mean that in every sense of the word. This is a fantastic, fantastic album. Someone who I've been a fan of for a very long time. Anyway, I guess I should say, I can't say a very long time. I've been a fan of hers for about 8 years, I guess. About as long as I've been in New Hampshire. I'm going to be celebrating my 8th year in New Hampshire, actually, coming up end of this month, end of October. So her first album came out in 2013, but she was doing stuff beforehand. To prove how much of a fan I am of this gal, I think the very first climax for Sovereign Tech in episode 1, which used to be called Pick of the Week, I think. My very first one was this gal's album, and we are talking about none other than Lindsey Stirling. Now, hold on. You know what? Because I get so fucking annoyed by this. When you say that you're a Lindsey Stirling fan, first off, I know there's plenty of guys and gals my age who are into Lindsey Stirling. A lot of people think that she's like an artist for kids or something. No. Not even close. Okay. In fact, I mean, part of the reason is, first off, she's my age. Like, she's literally my age. Okay. I've actually, Ellen and I went to a Lindsey Stirling concert. It was a great concert. And most of the people there were not kids at all. Yeah, I don't get that. I mean, she started her career. So obviously we're talking about her new album. She started her career doing a Zelda video that was more or less based around a lot of stuff within like Ocarina of Time and so on. And even when she did that, and that would have been in, say, it was like 2011, around there, when she did that first video that really made her blow up, she was clearly appealing to an audience in their 20s, later 20s, just with the subject matter alone. And she would do it with other video game stuff too. Look, I'm sorry, she's not. She is a very, very mature and very talented artist. She just had her new album come out called Artemis, which is interesting, right? It's the name of a goddess. And man, she's one of those people. Now, we talk about, those you can't really become famous if you don't buy into the elites. Granted, she is Mormon, so she's already buying into one very interesting part of culture, or part of civilization, I should say. But she's one where I think there was a time where the music industry was trying to make her a very big deal, like with her second album, what was that? Shatter Me, right? And she did that song with Lizzie Hale, which was an awesome song. I think they tried to put her into that, but then I think she ended up, like, it didn't go over perhaps maybe as well as like the music industry was necessarily really interested to, or in. I'm not saying she's not still part of, those upper echelons, but regardless, Artemis, the beautiful thing about Artemis, and it would have been great to talk about this after doing that Death of the Guitar story, is that, I feel like you're getting you are getting the music that is not going through a focus group. It is music that just, this is what Lindsey Stirling digs and feels, and it's what she puts out there. And I feel like right from the first track on Artemis, it's called Underground. You instantly, for lack of a better phrase, feel that soul. And that's rare today. That's super fucking rare. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of, like, hip hop artists, rap artists, and some other people who maybe break out a ukulele or some horse shit that they are kind of like the Bon Jovi line, their songs are more than music, they were pictures of his soul. And I think you probably get some of that there, but then I'm not saying it doesn't take talent to do those sorts of things, but it's also not the classical talent. It's just different, but it's not that classical talent of what it takes to be just a master of your craft. And Lindsey Stirling is certainly that. And, she's proved the naysayers wrong on that matter as well. Who thought that perhaps you couldn't just, hang your hat on a violin. Oh, yes, you can. So I thought that Artemis was a ton of fun. A lot of it is very deep felt stuff. She has recently developed a working relationship with Evanescence, with Amy Lee. She was on tour with Evanescence last year, actually. And Amy Lee does make an appearance on this album, which, I mean, we're always happy to have Amy Lee do something, for fuck's sake. If you're like me and you're a huge Evanescence fan. So, that was cool as well to have that in there. But yeah, this is just a very well done album. I mean, there's nothing like groundbreaking here. It is the Lindsey Stirling sound that you very much know, that you've known for, almost a decade now, if you are a fan. But there's nothing wrong with that because it works, right? It's like when Sabaton came out with their new album. Everybody's like, well, it sounds like Sabaton. Whoa, well? I mean, I like it when people experiment, make no mistake. Like, when Def Leppard came out with Slang in 96, I thought that was fucking brilliant. Okay. But at the same time, when somebody's really good at what they do, yeah, go ahead, keep doing it. Like, I'm fine with that. In fact, I don't even, because people level that against AC/DC, right? I can't even imagine what an experimental AC/DC album would sound like. Can you? I don't know if I even want to know. I mean, artists can do whatever the fuck they want, but I don't even know if I want to know what the hell that sounds like. Like, that's got to be goddamn weird. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, just picture AC/DC doing like a concept album. Like, what is that going to sound like? So I don't mind when artists, just do what they're good at. And Lindsey Stirling, I'm glad she's still out there rocking it. I'm glad she's still got a fantastic, and I do think this is a fantastic album. It's basically track for track for what Lindsey Stirling does, and just beautiful. And again, it's so nice to hear something that sounds like it didn't get put through a billion focus groups, and where the person doesn't have to sell it with some stupid visuals on well, I mean, she does great YouTube videos, but they're always very nerdy. They're properly so, and you can tell it's like really coming from somebody who's really into this shit, as compared to, again, it's not something coming from a focus group or from a marketing manager or some kind of horse shit like that. She's doing what she wants, and I think that's great. So regardless, we don't need to keep harping on that. But yeah, check it out. Artemis by Lindsey Stirling. It's a good 14 tracks or so, I think, if you get the Target edition. Yeah, brilliant. I love every song on it. I really enjoyed. So give it a listen. And that's it for your Wednesday Q&A this week. Please feel free to send in more questions. I love getting these, even when it's just a question about, what kind of TV is Sovereign approved? I think that's, I hope people found value in that. So I don't mind even if it's questions like that, or ask me anything. Fuck. All right, that's it for your Wednesday Q&A. More content to come out throughout October. In fact, we got some Sovereign tracks finally to get into, because, wow, they are releasing what do they got, like 3 short tracks coming out this month? That's crazy. I already saw the first one. I think the second one comes out on the 10th. I don't know what the hell brought that all on, and we definitely got to talk about those trailers that have dropped for Discovery Season 3 and for Picard. A lot of great stuff to talk about there. Comics to review galore, and of course you're going to get so much more this month. And we got a couple of gaming grids. There's so much to talk about. It's going to be 2 episodes. So much to talk about this month. So October is going to be a hot one. I will see all of you on the other side.